All right, good evening. We'll call the zoning board of appeals for Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025, 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order, special hybrid meeting. Roll call, Dr. Travers.
Present.
Bob Phoenix. Present. Dave Martin. Present. Ed Opperbrock. Present. Mark Benjamin present. We do have a quorum. We have 5 seated members. Acceptance of the March 11th, 2025 meeting minutes.
Motion to accept minutes, March 25.
I'll second it.
Errors, omissions, corrections.
None I saw.
All those in favor to accept as presented?
Dottie, aye.
Bob Phoenix, aye.
Aye.
Ed Opperbrock, aye.
Mark Benjamin, aye. Meeting minutes be accepted as presented. Old business? None, right? New business. This is executive session for Forest Land Investment LLC of City of Norwich Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, so for executive session, the only people that can be in the room is the city's attorney and the board.
Well, the board has to invite me to be here.
Okay.
And you as well, so probably you should do a motion to go into executive session to discuss ending actual litigation.
Okay.
And invite Mr. Buck and me to be here present during the executive session.
Okay. So just so everybody understands what's going to happen, so you didn't feel like you wasted your time coming down here, we're going to go into executive session if we choose to, Mike, and then we're going to come back out, and if we choose to.
But then we discuss some.
Right, okay.
Mr. Black and others may wish to speak.
Okay.
You'll excuse us. Why don't you make the motion?
Well, motion-
Takes a 2/3 vote.
Okay.
Motion to enter into executive session of the zoning board of appeals for the city of Norwich, Connecticut. And to invite attorney
Corporation Counsel, Mike.
Corporation Counsel Mike Driscoll, thank you, and Richard Shuck, representative of staff of city of Norwich.
And Catherine
And
Rose.
Catherine Rose as the recording secretary.
She should not take
Oh,
this.
See,
She does not have to be.
I'm used to it. I do
Okay.
Amend my
we're
motion.
not used to this, so.
It's like not me.
Amend my motion to include Catherine Rose.
Okay.
No, I'm not invited.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Phoenix,
Dottie,
aye.
aye.
Sorry.
Good morning, aye.
Ed Opperbrock, aye.
Mark Benjamin, aye, unanimous. Catherine, you mind just closing
Yeah.
this and go through?
And I'm gonna shut the mic off and shut the camera off. There's nobody online, but it's recorded.
Who's all your friends, Mark?
So you heard every word you said.
Pretty close.
I think Attorney Wright went to the men's room and being here, and his client got tired, went home.
Okay. We waited him out. All right, if I could get a motion to return from regular session.
Regular session.
To return to regular session, taking note that no votes were taken.
Phoenix, motion to return to executive session,
Regular session.
to regular session, regular session. With a note that we have taken no vote and made no decision.
I'll second that. All those in favor, return to regular session.
Phoenix, aye.
Dottie, I.
Dan Ryan, Dan Everbeck, aye. Mark Benjamin, aye. Thank you for affording us that opportunity. Attorney Block, correct? Correct. Yes, okay. I'm sorry I introduced you, but we've seen you enough times. Name and address for the record, please.
Mark Block, 48 Franklin Street in Norwich, representing Forest Land Associates.
We're working
Forest
on,
Land Property.
we're working on Michael Bristol Corporation Council. 55 Main Street.
Floor is yours, Attorney Block.
Excuse me.
The floor is yours.
Well, I had presented a proposed settlement agreement to Attorney Driscoll, and we have been through a exhaustive pretrial program with the court before Judge Chadwick, who had suggested to the parties that there were several bases on which the Forest Land Investments claims could have been brought. We brought a request for a use variance, which was denied by the board as a subject of the appeal, and we believe that there was a sound basis for our appeal. Judge Chadwick had indicated to us that there was an alternate grounds that we had available to us, or still have available to us, which is on the basis of the pre-existing non-conforming use, in that time the zone changed, the condominiums were approved and declared. So we had a pre-existing use, so we could have elected to proceed on either course. There's no guarantee that if we go and try this case and Judge Chadwick, which we did, and Judge Chadwick rules that we're going to win our appeal or not. And should we lose the appeal, we would then have the right to go back to the zoning enforcement officer and file an application for permits on the basis that we have a pre-existing non-conforming use, which then may lend itself to another round of denials or appeals. So it was felt that Judge Chadwick suggested to the parties that we discuss possible settlement of this to cut off the continuing litigation and allow us a variance to do what we had originally sought to do, which was to exercise the rights to construct what was originally planned for that condominium development. We don't seek to change the use, but seek to build the residences in the 24 units that we own.
Can I just
We would,
question you one there, 24 units, and that would be in two buildings, two 12-unit buildings, or how many structures are gonna create 24 units?
I think there are 4 units per building, so it's, let me just, that answer I don't have.
Building.
That's, I just wanna verify that.
Wouldn't be on the site plan, I think.
There's 3 units in one building. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units in another building. There's another unit, it's 4 buildings. 1, 2, 3, I'm sorry, 5 buildings.
5 additional buildings.
This is just for the board. This is the last approved plan. And the buildings that are highlighted in yellow are the buildings in which my client owns units.
Okay.
So the intent is to construct the units as they were originally envisioned on that footprint.
Okay.
That be marked to the board. That be marked to the.
Yeah.
Sorry to sidetrack you. I just want to make sure we're all, it's been a while since we looked at it.
We could put this in the record as exhibit 1.
Yeah, so this is the same plan as that.
Yes,
This
that's highlighted, right?
Yes.
All right. Sorry about that. That's already thought.
Here we can.
And what the settlement agreement provides is that just granting us the variance doesn't give us the right to walk in tomorrow, file a variance in the land records and drive a backhoe up there to start construction. And as Mr. Shook has made clear to us, the site plan upon which this community was constructed has expired, so we'd have to apply for new site plans. We'd have to meet the new codes and regulations. We have an issue, and Attorney Wright, I think he came back in, represents the association. We've had discussions, and there are issues between my client and the association as to the declarant rights and what approvals we might need through the association, and that's made clear here. So granting a variance just gives my client the right to exercise whatever rights he has to construct units within this common interest community. It's a peculiar situation because we have the zoning ordinance lying on top of or underneath the declaration that's recorded in the land records and on which the community operates. And the conversations we've had with Attorney Wright and his client concern what they knew about my client's variance application and when they knew it and what their position is. And I've made it clear to them that we will have to have further discussions to determine what my client's rights are under that declaration, which this board is not being asked to decide. We're just being asked to decide the issue of the right under the zoning regulations to be granted a variance because of the peculiarity of the change in zone.
Is trying to say this thing politically correct. Is this settlement offer pretty much their last and best? I mean, is this, if this board were to come back and say, "No, we don't think 24, 25 units is too much. We think it's too much." Would the applicant still be interested if I said 12?
I don't have the authority to say yes or no.
Well, if I could, that suggestion, recommendation would be from the board. And so what we are asking you basically is your opinion, not a commitment. You think?
Let me answer you this way, because I believe Attorney Frank's client made it clear to us that they may have issues with the number of units
Okay,
at the common interest community. So those are discussions that we need to have with them. There would also be issues that Mr. Shook's office may have based upon the site plan that we file in today's code. So it's a little, I don't want to say premature, but it is premature to determine what's an appropriate number of units. But I think my client, as long as he doesn't get boxed in between what this board suggests and the association then suggests, you know, you might say, well, 24 is not the proper unit number, we think 18. They come back, okay, now we think we'll let you have 14. So
I just looked at everybody's face when you said 5 buildings.
Yeah, we're
So
not
I
thinking
think the
three or
answer is yes. You know, it
Okay.
becomes an economic reality because I understand there are infrastructure issues here that need to be dealt with. There are roads that need to be upgraded. I think there are other issues that the association has, which my client has indicated a willingness to participate and assist. So, the answer is yes, we're willing to talk about numbers, but I think we have to talk about it in a universal context.
We're not here to stand in anybody's way. I just want to be a part of the conversation.
Name and address for the record.
All right, I'm sorry.
You need to identify yourself, name and address for the record. So
I'm sorry, Jamal C. Wright, attorney for the board of directors of Forest View. And we're just here to be a part of the conversation. We talked to Mr. Block outside a little bit, and they want to let people know some of the issues they have with the property. We're bringing more people in. They'd like to see the plans. They didn't know anything about this, kind of heard through a friend of a friend, for lack of a better word. And so they just want to be part of the conversation on property that they have stakeholders in. And whoever moves into these properties will also be part of the board of Forest View. So they want to be part of the conversation. We're not here to stop anything. We're not here to say no. We're not here to riot. We just want to listen and see if we can give some input so we can work together to make this viable for everybody.
So for clarity, you're representing the
The board of
owners,
yeah, the homeowners.
correct?
The board of the board comprised of the homeowners. I guess it's like 4 people on it or what have you, and it's comprised of
Well, they
homeowners. I do
represent,
realize that 2 of the homeowners in that development are with his client, so they have complaints about those people. We just talked about that. So there's gonna be issues with parking and stuff like that, but I think it's something you can work through. So we don't have any complaints as of now. We're gonna take this stuff back to the board, and they're gonna have a meeting with the members about it and see if we can make it work out for everybody.
can we get your unvarnished opinion of the board's position on this?
Well, first of all, let me first say that I'm a small businessman, so I see any kind of economic activity as a positive. I've also expressed that to the board that this could be good things for you. But they have issues with like parking. Obviously, when you live on a property, it's a lot different than talking in a zoning board meeting about it, right? And those are some of the issues we're having with Mr. Black outside. She's like, well, I live there and this is it. You know, I think we can come to an agreement on this, to be honest with you. The board's just they're a little peeved that they weren't told about it. You know, the way we found out, you know, when your name is being discussed in negotiations and no one calls you for 2 or 3
Right,
days.
I mean,
Yes.
it affects their lifestyle.
The stakeholders, right?
And they're, as I assume, it is a properly declared condominium property. The areas that this is all gonna be going on is their common areas.
Right. And it just showed me actually where they're gonna be building an hour before I got here. And I see no reason why this could be a problem, except for the problems like parking and stuff. If these problems are addressed, I see this being successful. But you know, obviously when you live there, you have issues that people on the board and the zoning meetings don't know about, right? So we were initiating conversations with Mr. Block, and we'll be talking with him in the foregoing days about issues. I've asked them to draw up wish list, so to speak, of issues that they have, and we'll see if we can address those. I don't see it being a problem if those issues are addressed.
Okay,
It may be on the site plan, but are these 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom?
Without looking at the declaration,
Okay.
I'm looking
I can tell you that all of the housing units there right now are all 2 bedrooms.
They're all
They're
2-bedroom,
all 2 bedrooms.
Density notes.
okay, because these are this is what leads to parking and trash cans and everything else. The more bedrooms, the more kids' bikes and playgrounds and girlfriends' cars and everything else, so.
How many bathrooms? 1.5?
I believe it's 1.5. I didn't ask that. I do know all of them are 2 bedrooms though. It's quite a nice.
Can I ask a question, just for clarification, that the people's concerns are parking up there? So from a zoning development standpoint, you have parking requirements, so they have to have X number of parking places for every unit. based on
Yeah,
that.
I get that.
So is there concern that maybe, just for clarification, so everybody can think, are they possibly looking to have some overflow parking created for the entire complex?
the way it was explained to me is that they already have over, like, they're parking in places that they're not supposed to be parking because they have so many cars. And so, like, they're parking on the street, on the entrance and stuff like that. They just pointed out to me. And like, we don't have enough parking for the people we have now, is what they're saying. I can dig in deeper with that on how much they might need, but at least, there has to be adequate parking for the new people that are coming, and possibly a concern for more on top of that. Parking is the #1 concern right now. And it's that way now without them even adding anymore. Like, they have cars on the street.
Right,
So,
I think we'd have to look to see what parking there is up there now.
Yeah.
And how many parking spaces were not built out under that original plan.
Mhm.
And we can get a gross number of.
well, I think we base it on 1.5 per bedroom, no.
Yeah, so I mean,
No, there's some-
in theory, looking at this from a 30,000 foot view, you know, you got a 2-bedroom apartment, which requires 1.5 spaces, so that's
Right.
2 spaces. So when they look at these, they say, okay, you have a garage space and you have a space behind your garage, outside your garage door. There's your 2 spaces that meets that requirement. You know, so just in general for everybody to think about, yes, they may have a parking problem, but it may not be
A zoning problem.
a zoning problem. It may not be this developer's problem. It may be their problem to enforce their own declarations for people having too many vehicles.
that may be the
You know,
case.
and I'm just pointing that out as a whole, because this is what I deal with every day with parking.
That may be the case, but I would suggest that, their approval of this project is gonna depend on how the project affects them.
Right.
I mean, that's normal human nature, right? So if they're gonna build a strip club next to your house, you're gonna ask how many people are coming, right?
Right.
Even if it's not your business. So, you know, this is, and then I'm not saying this is a strip club, I'm just saying, there's other issues as well.
Right.
I know that they're gonna build condominiums, but there's an issue as to how many people are gonna be renters, how many people are gonna be owners. That's an issue in every.
That's in
And
the
we can-
declaration.
That was
bylaws.
one of my other
Right.
questions. What's the percentage up there, owner versus renter?
Yeah, that's a big issue for them.
Okay,
I
have no say in it.
I'm telling, my client owns 2 units in which there are renters.
Okay,
There's another unit that is owned by another individual that is rented out. So I think there were 3 renters.
There might be 3 renters, but you know, that's something that they wanna, there's
that's
gonna
the
be.
right to buy it.
But this is not a general non-owner occupied development. These
Okay.
are all
Yeah.
general owner occupied.
And this doesn't have to do with zoning, I'm probably gonna be dealing with him on this, but, you know, there's gonna be a dilution of the board. You know, 24 people will be coming to the board, there's only like 20 people on it now, I think, 20 people who are members now right now, so, you know, all these little funny things that we'll be discussing. Look, I'm coming with my hand out, I think economic development is good, and, that's what we're leaning towards, making a deal, that's where we're gonna listen.
So just to come circle and close my comments. Overflow parking for the complex as a whole may be beneficial
Yes,
because they have a parking problem.
Right.
Right. Not pointing fingers at who's creating what parking problem.
right,
But
there you go.
I would like to make a suggestion that based on the new information that we got, that the board has is coming up to speed on this for the first time. That we postpone any decisions or delay any decisions.
Gonna get there, but I just wanna make sure there's nothing else either of the attorneys would like to add. Did you cover everything you
I
were?
think I basically covered
Okay,
everything.
I don't wanna cut you off.
And the only issue we have is we'd have to further extend Judge Chadwick's 120-day period, which I think he would do.
Well, we've waived it already.
Yeah.
I think we don't have that problem. We have something coming up on the 14th, but it's May 14th. Probably is
We have another status conference
status
with the
time.
judge.
With a different judge.
So
Okay.
based on what this board decides to do, that's what we will
Right.
report to Judge Chadwick.
My question to staff is, are we reopening the original application? Or are we asking for a new
Are
application?
we asking for, I think.
No, I
we're
think
asking for
we're-
a new application.
No, I think we're acting on the application that was before us.
We got 3 attorneys.
Right, I think,
Tell us what we're doing.
I think we're acting on the application that was in front of us, but there may be the possibility of a modification to that original application. And in the interest of trying to give the board the best information to make decisions.
Well, the only reason I ask is because in the declaration, it's written that in the settlement agreement, will sustain the appeal by Forest Land. The appeal by Forest Land has been decided on and denied. So it would be my opinion, and I appreciate being corrected, that a new application should ensue for us to decide on.
That, the appeal is from that decision,
From,
from the decision denying the application that was filed.
okay, so it's not an appeal to zoning, it's an appeal to the previous decision.
It's an appeal from the zoning, a decision of the zoning board of appeals. That's what's been appealed.
Oh, and that's what went to court.
That's what went to court, and that hasn't been decided yet. It's tried in November of 2024. We've had 3 meetings so far with the judge who tried the case. The judge made some points that I think both sides are thinking about. But there's no decision made by the board before any settlement could take place. It appears that at least 2 streams. One, Mr. Wright and Mr. Block are going to have to do talking with respect to the project itself and the rules that you have in the condominium, which is not necessarily related to what the zoning is and what the board would decide. How much time that takes is probably I don't know. I guess if the board were not to take action tonight one way or another, that would allow that to occur. Then at a point in time, the board can decide whether they feel that what was presented to the parties of that opportunity, including the possibility that they won't be able to come to an understanding. Decide it at that time, on the basis of what the board feels that the decision, for whatever reason appropriate, can be settled by virtue of what the board now knows or will know as time passes. Not to say that you're right or wrong, it's simply to say that you would agree with settlement if the parties came to the same, based on all the information that you have at the time you make it.
Okay, do you have something you want to express?
Well, I mean, it just seems to me like the 2 groups need to talk to each other more than they have already and come to some kind of an agreement that, in my opinion, makes more sense than what was proposed here.
I think that Attorney Wright's participation here, whatever reason, except for at the 11th hour, it's a discussion we would have had to have had anyway. So all we're doing is compressing it by time and getting everybody in the same room.
Well, I guess what I would like to see is not beyond the discussion, I would like to see after that discussion, a different proposal.
But I think if the board and, my client were to reach an agreement, it would have to be a vote of the board, of the association board, to approve that, which we would then come back to this board with and say, this is what we've agreed to. And then, take it to this
And then
board.
take it from there.
Okay.
Take it from
You
there.
don't feel we need to have a new application? is that
No, because we're
correct?
discussing the appeal of the denial.
Okay,
You know, and it is rather confusing and it's kind of not customary. We have a third attorney representing the association.
Yeah.
You know,
well, this to me is just another interested party
right.
in the settlement that we are to consider. So,
At the end of the day, it's between Attorney Block's client and the board. But at the same time, in the interest of fairness for everybody, you know,
including the
is-
city,
and yes, exactly, but in the fair interest of fairness to everybody, Attorney Block comes and the board agrees on something and then the association says no, so everybody's just wasting everybody's time. So a comprehensive discussion. And correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Driscoll, should the board try to give some sort of guidance tonight as to what they would be looking for? Not that, you know, Chairman Benjamin had stated 12 units, you know, that was just thrown out there. But maybe the board is thinking of reducing the number of units and they come back with 18 or 22 instead of 24 and the board just says no. Then we're all just wasting time.
I think it's fair to the board, we should have some time to think about it. Rather than
Yep.
Tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
this-
Yeah, just in my
This is where I'm trying to get,
Yeah,
which direction do we go?
yeah,
Okay.
because I think there's a lot more to it than just the number of units.
Yes,
Lots of them.
Right, but I'm in agreement with Rich of thinking we should express to the applicant some of our concerns and then have him come back and attempt to address them, you know, more or less say why this got opposed. And what could change something. It doesn't mean it would, but if we were to just go around the line saying, you know, hey, obviously parking, you know, we want to make sure we address parking. And I mean, if you just want to work our way up, express it. To me, this is a suggestion, a proposal that's been worked out without Forest View landowners consideration. And I mean, if we were hearing this tonight, abutting neighbors would have the opportunity to come in and express their concern. And I'm looking at this attorney as an abutting neighbor. So he should have every right to say, this affects me.
and that's based on the knowledge that he has for who he represents,
Correct.
which he doesn't apparently have because
Right.
you were only asked 11th hour to come.
We had to reach out to.
You're uninformed.
Yeah,
So,
in fact, I'd love to bring this, if y'all were not to vote on this tonight, that would very much delight the board members. Even if you have another meeting soon, because they'd love to discuss this with their
Which they should.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
appropriate.
You know,
even that layout that you have, we don't have that. I'd love to be able to show that to them.
I will get a copy from, Mr. Shook, because I think that's my last copy, and I will get extra copies and send you a plan.
I want to emphasize, we're not against this. We're not coming and saying, no, we just want to know what's going on and maybe be a part of it. And maybe build something that moves both of us, all parties involved.
well, Jerry, you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think my concerns probably would mirror with the residents, density and parking, because parking is always,
Make people mad.
right, absolutely. Yes, I was very mad at work today on some, yes, not parking.
No, I don't know that. This is not a zoning board discussion, but the two people that live there as renters under his client are not popular. So to
Appreciate
speak.
that.
So we can talk about that another time with him, but
That's
whatever.
interesting.
I mean, I, that doesn't always just because of renters, people only, that's not.
Right, that's true.
Renters,
That also-
Right.
but yes.
so your concern would be density and parking.
Density and parking, and
And so I think my concerns would probably mirror what his clients, the residents. Ed?
Yeah, I would go a little bit beyond that. I mean, I would. If I'm a resident there and now all of a sudden I'm gonna have a whole bunch of new apartment next to me that I never even knew about, never thought about, never considered. And there's some talk now about, well, maybe we should put in like some kind of a common field or a pool or something, I mean, the quality of life, right? So I would say it's very important that there's be much better communication between the developer and residents.
And the good news is that's gonna happen.
And so I don't have specifics about what I would be concerned about specifically. Obviously, parking sounds like it's.
Mhm.
And maybe there should be some kind of discussion between the two, like, hey, what would you guys like to see? Do you want to have less numbers of apartments? Do you want to have a soccer field, whatever?
They are drawing a wish list, not with the understanding that they're gonna get everything they want. But just so we can get some things out there when we discuss, and I think we're gonna be successful here. Bob?
Yeah, as I look at this and I read the proposals, I'm thinking that, the judge has told us all of us, outside of his courtroom, to make a settlement. And to me, a settlement always means compromise. So I would like to see some compensation, not only for the residents, as proposed, but also for the citizens of the city of Norwich, as far as recreational facilities or, and I don't mean hard brick and mortar facilities. I'm talking walking trails that can be accessed by the public on the property or around the property, things like that. Things that would actually, when and if this is approved and comes to fruition, would actually help the residents of Norwich benefit from this increase in density that we're proposing. So that would more than likely come from the owners, and that's what I'm looking at.
Dottie?
Well, I kind of agree with Bob here. But if you're taking those 5 buildings, I think what I would like to see is another plot plan of what your intentions are. And the people in the complex, like this, you have meetings with, and this gentleman suggested that they've given comments as to what they want. Example is pickleboard, pickle court, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, as an example, you need something, like I said, to draw the people over there to come to this again complex. You just can't physically just put the building here and that's where it is. The location of those 5 buildings to me was kind of too much high density involved. And you got to consider for the people that are going to buy the units, the size of them. I don't know what the square footage is now in the units that are there, but the units itself should be considered as to the how big they are. So my opinion would be to cut the amount of units and make less buildings if it's possible. But now there's a lot involved here that should be considered, and I said, like, work together on it. That's the way I feel. It's going to be a lot of work involved, but
It
Has
has
to be
to
done.
be economically feasible for the
Yeah.
developer, but I'm gonna take note of Rich. I wasn't that far off from being serious on 12. I'm not a proponent. I've never been a proponent on residential in the industrial park. And we're adding more residences up there in our cherished
Nearly
industrial
100.
park.
Nearly 100 is. proposed.
Right, and it's, I agree with everyone else. I'd like to see less density. I'd like to see some recreational space. I'd like to see some parking. So I know when we looked at it before, I kind of looked at the timeline of this developer bought something that although it was pre-existing, it had changed. He bought, spent good money, got 3 buildings and some space. And putting 5 more buildings up there, I felt was too much. And even at this moment, I feel it's still too much. But I'm not saying I'm inflexible, but I'd like to see a little more than this before we move on it. And I think what we're all asking you to do is come up with a better proposed plan that we could all agree to. And settle this thing and not keep it in litigation for the next 5 years. Is there any questions for us?
You've made it crystal clear.
Okay,
Do you want a sketch of some sort?
yeah, I'd like a sketch. You know, and I understand it's gonna be requiring a site plan approval, but I think that if we come up with less is better. And if that was approved, then from talking to Rich, I think that showed 25, even new regs would show 24. So there would be one less that, even that plan wouldn't meet today's, but, I think we all can see a way to solve this thing, and let's just all be, you know, don't try to feast on it all at once. And if anybody doesn't have any questions, I'd like to propose that we continue this till next month. Ask all 3 of you to come back with proposals that we can digest and work forward to.
Absolutely. Thanks for the Rich.
And that's what I'm looking for.
You guys are all good with that?
Absolutely.
If and when they come back at that time. Would we be expected to make a decision at that time? Or would we
It'd be
still
May
have some time
13th.
to think about it?
We can
May 13th.
certainly, we could make a decision or we can continue on. Okay. It seems like the judge wants to hear that we're working towards something. And although I'm sure they'd like it off their docket, as well as you 3 would like it, but as long as there's progress being made and it's understood, I don't think it's a problem.
The board's gonna be very pleased with how this meeting ended. I'll let them know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Motion to continue?
Motion to continue to the next scheduled, board meeting, May 13th.
Yeah, I second it.
All those in favor to continue?
Bob Phoenix, aye.
Body on.
Ray Martin, aye. And everybody, aye.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Bob Phoenix.
I second, Dottie.
All those in favor to adjourn?
Thank you.
Ray Martin, aye. Everybody, aye. Bob? Everybody?
Dottie, aye.
Aye, unanimous. Meeting adjourned 8:32.